Hello again. George Freestone back to continue telling the story of our baseball journey. The journey that my wife Carol and I have taken to visit 30 of the current major league ballparks. And today we're going to talk a little bit about Cleveland. And I'll start again by talking about my attire. Well, you can see that I have a cap on. And let's see if this works. If you take a look at this cap on the back, it is indeed a Cleveland Guardians cap. And many of you will know that the Indians became the Guardians in the start of the 2022 season. But the team in Cleveland will always be remembered to me as the Indians, and each of the games that we saw in Cleveland and with Cleveland playing as a road team were as the Indians rather than the Guardians. So I'm wearing a Cleveland Guardians cap, but I then thought, well, what else am I going to wear? What jersey or whatever? And I think the most appropriate shirt that I could come up with is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And that's the polo I have on. One of the magnets for Cleveland as a city is that fine museum of rock and roll music. And we have been there maybe a dozen or so times. And so it is always quite a bit of fun to go to Cleveland and check out the rotating exhibits at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We do have a Hall of Fame in my office from maybe it's a wall of fame showing all the pictures from the various times that we've been to the Hall of Fame. One other quick thing I'll mention before we get into the slide is one of the Indians I remember from growing up in the Cleveland area was Rocky Colavito. And Rocky Colavito, quite a home run hitter. In one game, I believe he hit 4 consecutive home runs, maybe in the 1959 season. But the thing I want to call attention to is, guess where Rocky Colavito now lives? Yes, friends, he lives in Berks County, just a little bit away from Reading, Pennsylvania. So with that introduction, I'm going to start sharing my screen, and we're going to pick up and talk a little bit about the game. So again, orientation. You can see me in the upper right if you care to. In the lower right, again, that white box is a link if you go to the presentation, and it will take you to the box score for the game. And the game that we're talking about here is actually the third of 4 visits to Progressive or Jacobs Field in Cleveland. It did change its name, and I forget the date that it changed its name. So Cleveland indeed is a great city. I've talked about a couple of the reasons why. Another reason why is I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. And right next to the great city is a link in the presentation. You're going to start seeing this on all subsequent pages as well. I will try and share photos from our visits, a very small fraction of which are captured on this particular slide. So let me say something about the 4 visits that we've made to Cleveland to watch a ball game there. The first, I'm pretty sure it was just with Patrick, son Patrick, and myself. And we were actually there to see a Browns game, a Cleveland Browns football game. But we got there early and we found that the Indians were playing at home. And so we said, why don't we just see if we can catch a game? And we had a very enjoyable preview to the football game experience on Sunday. I think we went to a game on Saturday. One of the more interesting stories that I can tell you is the "Hey Dad, I forgot something" story. That was with Visit Two, and Visit Two was with, again, son Patrick, but this time he brought along his childhood and lifelong friend, Kyle Usbeck. And so it was the three of us, and right around Pittsburgh, I remember Patrick looking at me and saying, "Dad, I think we have a problem. I forgot something." And what he told me he forgot in days before all the tickets on your smartphone were the tickets themselves. So we called 1-800, I need some help, Mom. And she arranged at the will call area of the stadium. And you can see myself there pointing to Patrick at the will call. He was actually picking up the tickets for the three of us for the game. Now, the third visit, which I think is actually the game that is talked about here, it's from an August 2011 game, was with son Patrick, his wife, Angie, and her parents. So Carol and myself, Agnes and Tom, Angie and Pat, all visited the game. And in the picture in the center there, you can see the dads, that's Tom and myself, with Patrick and Angie at the game. And at that game, I believe the Indians pulled out the victory in the eighth with 2 runs in the bottom of the eighth to beat the Twins. The fourth visit is the one in the center right there that you can see. It includes all 4 of our children, Patrick, Angie, Andrea, and Kyle. And we saw the Texas Rangers and the Cleveland Indians play at that particular game. And given that I've been talking about the Indians for so long, I feel it's only appropriate to make the switcheroo and bring back the Indians icon from the past, because that's who this team will always remind me of. Now, the Guardians does make sense. I believe those are statues that are on several of the streets, supposedly to look out for the welfare, I think, of Cleveland. But I will always remember them as the Indians. So we had a great visit with all 4 children there. You saw the picture. I will point out that Cleveland, in addition to other interesting things, has had quite a few collections of very interesting and desirable restaurants. Several Iron Chef restaurants, some of which COVID in the pandemic took out, and Lola was one of them, unfortunately, I think, that has gone by the wayside, but that was a lovely restaurant in Cleveland. The games at the Indians, I think in 3 of the 4 games that we attended, there were fireworks following the game. You'll see that if you take a look at the pictures, and in the lower left of the screen, you'll see one image of the post-game fireworks. They really did a great job with those fireworks. I skipped over a trivia question. It's been a bit of a drought for the Indians in terms of the last time they had a World Series win. Can you tell me that last year? When they won the series? I believe it was 1948. And I'll close this episode out just by pointing to the center picture, where when you historically went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they would take your picture in front of a green screen as you entered the museum. And then they would offer you wonderful photographs, and they would plaster you on the cover of the Rolling Stone. So this is from that game where we went to the Rangers earlier in the day. You can see that we went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and there is on the cover of the Rolling Stone, the Freestone family. Thank you for your attention, and we'll be back soon with another episode.